Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Cascade Speakeasy Toastmasters. If I get a little too loud, I know you'll let me. Eric will jump out of his chair, and the rest of you just let me know if I'm too loud, but that's generally my demeanor. I'm more loud than I should be. If everyone would please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and repeat after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please be seated. Our illustrious president will not be with us tonight, so I'm filling in not only as the president, what do they call a person who's President ad hoc.
President Pro Tem.
Pro Tem, thank you, as well as the Sergeant at Arms. We are very fortunate, however, to have with us tonight our Toastmaster for this evening, who is slowly making his way into the kitchen. Please welcome Steve Schwinn.
You're muted.
He's still
Hey
on
there.
mute.
How is everybody? Good day, good day. I apologize. I'm a little flustered and disjointed. I was in the middle of a couple of different sales and I got here in the nick of time. And of course, trying to sign into my Hotmail account to pull up the agenda resulted in the password is not accessible. I've been fumbling around like a madman here trying to get engaged, and so I missed everything. What I'm hoping is that there aren't any significant changes because I don't know what they are if they are. Were there any?
No changes, Steve.
Sorry? We're golden. Great. Well, welcome everyone. Happy to have you tonight at Cascade Speakeasies back on Zoom. Tonight's theme is Icebreaker. It'll be interesting to see what we come up with on that topic. Should be some fun. I think we're ready to roll. We don't have any speakers. We do have Eric raising his hand. Eric?
He has a joke of the day.
That's where I was going. I knew there was something I was after. Eric, do you have a joke of the day for us?
I do.
Let's have it.
Can you hear me?
What?
IRS decides to audit grandpa. The IRS decides to audit grandpa and summons him to the IRS office. The IRS auditor was not surprised when grandpa showed up with his attorney. The auditor said, "Well, sir, you have an extravagant lifestyle and no full-time employment, which you explain by saying that you win money gambling." I'm not sure the IRS finds that believable. "I'm a great gambler and I can prove it," says grandpa. "How about a demonstration?" The auditor thinks for a moment and says, "Okay, go ahead." Grandpa says, "I'll bet you $1,000 that I can fight my own eye." The auditor thinks for a moment and says, "It's a bet." Grandpa removes his glass eye and fights it. The auditor's jaw drops. Grandpa says, "Now I'll bet you $2,000 that I can fight my other eye." Now the auditor can tell Grandpa is blind, so he takes the bet. Grandpa removes his dentures and fights his good eye. The stunned auditor now realizes he has wagered and lost $3,000. With Grandpa's attorney as a witness, he starts to get nervous. "Want to go double or nothing?" Grandpa asked, I'll bet you $6,000 that I can stand on one side of your desk and pee into that wastebasket on the other side and never get a drop anywhere in between. The auditor twice was cautious now, but he looks carefully and he decides there's no way this old guy can possibly manage that stuff. So he breathes again. Grandpa stands beside the desk and unzips his pants, but although he strains mightily, he can't make the stream reach the wastebasket on the other side. So he pretty much urinates all over the auditor's desk. The auditor leaps with joy, realizing that he has just turned a major loss into a huge win. The grandpa's own attorney moans and puts his hand in his hands. Are you okay? The auditor asks. Not really, says the attorney. This morning when Grandpa told me he had been summoned for an audit, he bet me $25,000 that he could come in here, pee all over your desk, and that you'd be happy about it. Don't mess with old people.
Now that story hour is over. I'd like to introduce our esteemed general evaluator who will monitor our meeting tonight. Lloyd Smith, would you please share with us?
Thank you, Steve. I am the general evaluator tonight. Our crew is small but mighty. We do not have a prepared speech, so we don't have a speech evaluator. So we have the, I guess you'd call it functional part of the crew. Our timer tonight is Rob Tidd. Rob, could you, what's your role?
Yes. Thank you, Mr. General Evaluator. This evening, we don't have any prepared speeches. Therefore, we are going to have a fun-filled evening of table topics with a twist. Tonight, table topics are going to be 2 to 4 minutes. So the reason that we have timers is so that we can make sure that speakers speak in a concise time period. So tonight, I will have, at 2 minutes, I will present the green dot. At 3 minutes, I will present the square yellow. And at 4 minutes, I will present the red diamond to the speaker so that the speaker knows to close their speech. And I will report at the end of the meeting. Thank you, Mr. General Evaluator.
Thank you, Rob. Our grammarian tonight is Pat Whitfield.
Speaking with the mask on makes things muddled. And oops, I just forgot my glasses. All right, my job as grammarian is to make sure that we do not murder the English language, that we treat it with kindness, and we don't do any cruelty. So I'll be watching. I'd also get to introduce the word of the day, and the word of the day is extemporaneous. Extemporaneous. And extemporaneous speaking is the art of giving speeches on the spot without notes or memorization, relying only on the speaker's depth of knowledge and their ability to explain what they know in a coherent, engaging manner. As a category of forensics competition, extemporaneous speaking is the manifestation of public speaking skills in their purest form. Without the support of notes or memorization, the speaker is on his or her own when he or she is in front of an audience with only one's memory, knowledge, and command of language to aid the individual. Extemporaneous. Thank you.
Thank you, Pat. Our off counter this evening is Vicky Chatterton.
This evening, I will be watching for filler words in all of our talking opportunities. I will be looking for the ums, the ahs, repetitions, the likes, you knows, ands in the inappropriate spots, and I will give my report at the end. Back to you, Mr. Table Topics, or Mr. General Evaluator.
Thank you, Vicki. Let's see now, this is going to be a little bit odd because we don't have a prepared speaker. Who am I supposed to? Oh, I'm supposed to turn it back over to our Toastmaster, Steve.
Hey, Steve.
Did we not make it to the meeting tonight? Oh, yeah, there it is. Looks now like it's time to talk.
You're not muted, but we can't hear you.
Can't hear you.
Steve, speak into your speaker.
You're
Now you're
muted.
muted. Now you're muted.
Time out.
Can you hear me now?
Not too well.
Something happened.
Check your speaker and yeah, okay, he switched devices. I don't know if you saw his Houdini act while you were in the middle of different things in there, but I saw him switch some devices. It was quite impressive.
A little less impressive right now. Steve, you need to turn your volume up somehow.
Yeah. Steve has left the building.
I guess he's had enough. The humiliation was too much and he was fled.
So now we're doing this without a computer up there now. We're directly in there.
Yeah, the owl was, so you can see Mary on the owl.
Yeah, so it's the owl that's focused.
Okay, here I am. Sorry, I have two things going now. I will now turn over the meeting to Mary Cyree, our Table Topics Master.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster, Steve Schwind. The theme is icebreakers. I thought it would be a great idea, since we don't have a speech, to practice some extemporaneous ice breaking. Now, icebreaker is a term that describes an activity that reduces tension and anxiety within a group, and that also is a term for our first Toastmaster speech that we give. I thought this would be a great exercise also because we have a number of members who have yet to give their icebreaker speech, but none of them are here tonight, so that's the way it goes, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's pretty funny. So that sort of, obviates my whole introduction to table topics. But here we are. A few weeks ago, though, at Electric Toasters, we had a fellow who always gives a good icebreaker, but he always starts with an apology. Oh, I don't know anything about that topic. I really don't have anything to say about it. And he carries on for 20, 30 seconds. And then he dives into the topic. He answers it beautifully. He follows the table topic and finishes. So we gave him some tips on what to do if you don't know what to say in table topics. Bluffing is a good option. Or a stalling technique, just to start saying something that gets you talking. In the meantime, in the back of your brain, you're putting your answer together. Some examples are, that's a great question. I'm glad you asked that. I was just thinking about that the other day or today when I was out walking the dog. That reminds me of a story about my grandson. Those little 30-second options will often bring the answer to the fore, and then you can continue. I would also like to add a bit of a radical option today. Sometimes when the table topics master is reading a topic, it just resonates with me. Oh, call on me, I want to say. So if one of my table topics resonates with you, you think you own this answer, let me know. Raise your hand, or if you're online, put up the thumbs up thingy, whatever those are called, and it's yours. I think since we've made table topics longer, we can make a few other things easier. Okay, we're all on board? Let's see, I have 12 topics. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 people. So we'll just watch the clock and see how this goes. You know, I do have a question. How do you hold the timer things so that people, oh, okay, so people at home see.
Yeah,
it that
and
way. It's-
people here, they know when I put it out.
Okay, okay. Family vacations, especially the family road trips when you were a kid. Dad drives, mom packs for everyone. The kids sit in the back seat and they're either fighting or reading comic books until they get car sick. That's what our one family vacation was like. The kids never look out the window at the beautiful scenery. So tell us a story of your family vacations when you were a kid or with your kids. Anyone? Steve, that sounds like a Steve question.
Am I live or am I Memorex?
You're good.
I apologize. I just have had an interesting bunch of things going on. I was just talking about family vacations with someone and remembering the pleasantries of 4 kids. I think at the height of the season, 6 of us jammed into a Jimmy, otherwise known as a GMC pickup, with a topper on the back. My dad had put in plywood across the bed of the rails of the pickup so we could store everything underneath the bed. And then we would pile on top with blankets and pillows, and we would drive through the entire Western United States with the sweltering temperatures of the 90s. And we would enjoy Wall Drug. When we got to Wall Drug, that was great because you get a free glass of water at Wall Drug and it can bring you back down off the edge. But needless to say, there were something less than pleasant times to be had with 4 kids packed into the back of a pickup for hours on end, traveling from one place to the next. The great thing is when we were in Arizona, we went to this KOA and it was like the gulag. It had big concrete walls around it. It was in a residential, almost like neighborhood. And my brother fell in love at the ripe old age of 12 or 13, probably 13. And we ran in this pack like a bunch of dogs through this park and harassed everyone in this park. And I remember my brother and his new girlfriend, trying to disappear on us and have a little private moment of staring into one another's eyes. And it was kind of hilarious because towards the last day or so that we were there, he and she were planning their escape from the gulag, that he would run away from our mobile home only to live forever after with this girl. A great memory of our summer vacations, the true highlight of my memories, traveling in a sweltering hot pickup truck for endless days. Thank you so much, Ms. Table Topics Master.
Bravo, Steve. Eric, I have one for you.
I'll do that one.
You'll do that one?
Okay.
Sounds good. Presenting Eric and family vacations.
I was the oldest of 4 children. My dad was a Marine and he was on the temporaneous squad, so he's an ex-Marine and an ex-temporaneous, so you know how that goes. Most of our relatives were in Southern California, LA, and he would not stop for anything. He would drive 6 hours straight, and I don't know how we did bathroom breaks. I was so traumatized, I don't even remember. So when I had kids, we had 6 kids. The 2 boys were older, and the 4 girls were close in age, within about 3 years, 3.5 years. And I vowed never to take a car trip. So we didn't go on many vacations, but when we did, we flew. So we flew to Disneyland and we flew to Cabo. And one of my pastimes was acting like a derelict in the airport with these 4 girls. And I'd hike my pants up, my grandpa and walk around, you know, and just, you know, they would move a couple of aisles down the chairs, and Christina would just go, oh, Eric, you know, and I'd go and I'd sit up next to them and I'd smell their hair, or, you know, it was so much fun. And this one time, we were gonna go to Cabo. We boarded in Seattle. We got on the plane, and of course, my modus operandi is, as soon as they get the seat back, I'm taking a nap. Well, I did that, and I got a strange sensation. And when you go out of Seattle, Mount Rainier is on the left. When I looked out the window, Mount Rainier was on the right. And before he even announced it, I said, we're going back to the terminal. And sure enough, it was within a month of when that jack screw went off on that Alaska Airlines plane and it took everybody into the ocean. And his rudder wasn't working just right. And he said, we're going back. And so we landed in there. And of course, all the news cameras were there. And it was interesting because my daughters were cute as a bug, just teens or preteens, and they got interviewed on national TV. And it was a lot of fun. But anyway, pastime in the airports, harassing my kids.
Thank you, Eric. Some people play sports. Some people play cards or games. Some play musical instruments. Our play changes through our lives as children, teens, young adults, parents, retirees. What have been your favorite types of play activity? Rob.
Thank you for that question. When I was a kid, I loved playing sports. My most favorite sport was playing football. I started playing football in Seattle. I played contact football. When I came over here, contact football at that particular age didn't exist. It was flag football or touch football. I was therefore actually a couple years ahead of the kids in high school. I went to Waterville. That's where I graduated from high school. I actually was the only sophomore that lettered in my sophomore year. I really enjoyed that game and missed the opportunity to play. I think that is the reason why I've taken it upon myself to be the best football official possible. I was really looking forward to football happening this fall because we really didn't have much of a season last season. However, now I'm concerned whether or not we're actually going to have a season this fall. I was scheduled to be the white hat in the Wenatchee High School varsity game Friday night. That game has now been canceled due to some of the Wenatchee High School kids getting COVID. Therefore, everybody has to be quarantined. That's the bad news. The good news is there are other schools that are still playing, as far as I know. Friday night, I will be refereeing a game at Manson. Manson will be playing Clay Ellen, which I don't think they've ever played before. I actually was at a jamboree last Saturday and watched the Clay Ellen team play in Kashmir, and they're a pretty good team. Given the opportunity to be an official doesn't allow me to enjoy the sport that I did as a kid, but it allows me to get out there and still be active and participating in that sport and helping those kids become better football players. I just hope that we will have a season this year. That's yet to be seen. Thank you very much, Madam Table Topics Master.
I'm so sorry to hear about Wenatchee High School team. It's too bad. Family traditions. Does your family have traditions that are unique? Perhaps surrounding a holiday such as Christmas or 4th of July. Maybe it involves food or ethnic customs. I knew a family that had a tradition of wearing loud neckties every time they got together. It's kind of a surprise to me at a birthday party. It was a lot of fun. Does your family have traditions that are unique? Vicky.
Thank you, Madam Table Topics Master. I've been asked this question before, and at first I didn't think that we really had traditions per se that we did every year, because when I envision families that have traditions, it's they would get together, say Christmas Eve, the whole family, and that was the time when they would do like one present and then go to church service and then come home, and it just seemed like they always had elaborate things. But my kids reminded me, and it's not that it was unique, but we have a tradition of going to a movie on a holiday, because that is just something that my mom started when I was a kid. And I think it was because for some of the time it was just her and I on holidays. And so she wanted to make it special. And she thought that if it was a movie, it might do so. So we would do that. And I just continued it on with my kids. And it seems that we remember those movies more so than movies throughout the year. And so we just have this great connection with family movies. And it becomes just one of those things that we haven't been able to do in the last year. And it was one that I realized that I missed. When we had Christmas this year, and what we do is we open presents early on Christmas morning. We have our meal early day, the big meal. And then what we would always do is early after or late afternoon, early evening, go to a movie. And we were thinking, well, what are we going to do this year? So we turned it into family game night. And that's always fun too, where you all sit around the table and try different games. And we would always come up with ones that we hadn't played before. And it was a lot of fun. But we do have one game that our family does not play, and that is Risk. I don't know what it is about that game, but I have heard lots of families say that that is one where arguments start. So I try and avoid that game as much as I can. I'm thinking that this holiday season, I can't believe that it's been coming up in just a few more months, that I think we're going to have to come up with another family game night. I'm thinking we're probably not going to be able to do a movie night, but you never know, because the way things are now, they stream brand new movies on the different platforms. with or not Pirates of the Caribbean, with the Jungle Cruise that just came out this summer. At first, I thought we were going to take the whole family to it. I have grandchildren, and they ended up going to Silverwood with the other grandparents. And so my oldest son and I snuck away to Gateway Cinema and went to go see it. And I realized that it was probably too scary for the little ones. And so we streamed on Disney Plus Jungle Cruise. And so I know now that that is an option. So if a movie comes out Christmas Day and it's one that we want to see and we can stream it, we'll do that. Otherwise, we're going to be doing family night of games, and we'll come up with some really fun ones to include ages, 4 to 90. So we'll have fun. Back to you, Mrs. Table Topics Master.
I have to say, game night sounds a lot more fun than my family tradition of Ludicrous dinner. I always have to throw that in.
Oh,
But yeah, I like it. Hobbies. Are you a person who enjoys hobbies, learning new skills? What hobbies have you had through your life? What interests you today? Is there a hobby you wish you'd made time for? What do you love to do in your spare time? Lloyd? Oh, wait a minute. Okay.
Mary missed. I really don't have hobbies. I do a lot of activity type things to fill my time, that do fill my time, but not really the hobby kind of person like stamp collecting or model railroads or anything like that. So instead of talking about hobbies, I want to talk about something that's I've noticed many, many times in this club and out in the outside world too, and that is the tendency that everybody has to think that extemporaneous speaking and impromptu speaking are the same thing, and they are not. Okay, I did both of those when I was in college. I was a team debater, but our coach required us to be in 2 of the 7 individual events. So I chose extemporaneous and impromptu speaking because they don't involve advanced preparation. That's a real plus for me. The difference is this: in extemporaneous speaking and competition, you draw 3 topics on a general topic area that you heard in advance. It's usually something like international current events or domestic current events, something like that. You draw your 3 topics, you choose the one you want, and then you have a half hour to prepare a speech. In college debate, the speech is maximum 7 minutes. There is no minimum, but you better get your maximum or you're not going to win. And notes are theoretically allowed, but nobody who wins ever uses them. So you have a half hour to think about the topic, use whatever references you want, and then give a 7-minute speech. Impromptu speaking, on the other hand, is no preparation time. At the college level, you walk into the room, you're handed a card that has about 100, 150 words, a paragraph or so, about a general topic area that's been announced in advance, like prison reform or economic equity or something like that. You read the card to yourself, you read it out loud, and then you give a 5-minute speech on that topic. Obviously, you have to do some research in advance or you're not going to fill 5 minutes. Both of those, well, they require very different skills if you think about it. And what I liked about impromptu speaking was that I learned that it was possible to write most of an impromptu speech in advance on the general topic area and then just fill in an introduction and a conclusion. I did that at the 1970 national tournament, made it all the way to the semifinals. There was only one protest from these spoil sports at Baylor who said I was cheating because I was not doing the speech impromptu, but I pointed out that the rules did not forbid that. It's just everybody assumed it. So the following year, there was what they called the Smith rule, which said you could not do the same speech in 2 different rounds. But that was the way it went, I guess. In any event, extemporaneous and impromptu are different things. We are doing impromptu speaking here as opposed to extemporaneous.
Thank you. That was educational. I did not know the difference between the 2. jobs. Tell us about an unusual job you've had. How did you get it? Were there any unforgettable characters you encountered, and what did it teach you? Did it influence the next jobs you held, Pat?
One of the most interesting and engaging jobs I ever had was when I was a junior or senior at UCLA, and Sandy Kahn, the songwriter, needed a secretary. I was hired to do that job. It was really quite exciting to be in his office, in his home. He and Jimmy Van Heusen wrote a whole number of popular songs, The Second Time Around, others. And the year that I worked for him, they were up for an Academy Award. The other interesting thing about the job was their next door neighbor was Art Linkletter. And his daughter and Art Linkletter's daughter were playmates. And so these little girls used to come in because they were kind of taken with this college girl who was there. You know, there wasn't anybody like me around them. And they weren't like anybody that I had been before because their home was quite gracious. Down at the end of the street, there in, not Hollywood, they were in the Beverly Hills area, was where Bing Crosby had lived and raised his children. And closer to them was where Humphrey Bogart and Lauren Bacall lived. So it was just like this whole other world. It was really exciting to be exposed to a campaign for the Academy Awards. They didn't win the Academy Awards that year, but still very exciting for a college girl to be able to do that. And to meet people I might not ordinarily have met under circumstances that you would have if you were a speech major at UCLA. Worked out very, very, very nicely. I think having insight into Hollywood and the world of Hollywood was a real growth experience for me, because how often does just an ordinary person get to interact with people who are in the public eye all the time? And then also to see how a song is created, because one was a lyricist and one was a musician, and they had to put it together and then take it off to the studio. And I remember one of the parties that I was invited to was prior to the Academy Awards. And oh my gosh, there were so many celebrities there. I can see Barbara Streisand coming down the staircase in a burgundy evening gown. Wow. And it was unforgettable to have that experience so young, because it isn't anything that I would normally have accepted or expected. The corny part of it is I've been doing theater since I was about 8 or 9 years old. So it fostered the latent desire to be in movies, which I never materialized. It never was fruitful for me, but it was really cool to see all of these celebrities in their beautiful clothes drinking champagne. I didn't drink then, so I didn't get to sip the champagne, and smoking their cigarettes with great elegance, and some of them with cigarette holders, just a totally different view of the world. So that's the most interesting job that I ever had. What was interesting is when I married my first husband, the Kahns, Sammy and his wife, who was the head of the charity there in the greater Los Angeles area, gave me an absolutely elegant sterling silver fondue dish, which I still have. I don't think of them anymore, but it was sure nice knowing them when I did. Thank you.
Wow, Pat.
Wow.
We
No
were
idea.
all glued to every word. My answer would have been my most unusual job was grating peas in a frozen food. But yeah, rubbing shoulders with Hollywood elite, that is pretty fascinating. see, everyone's had a chance.
Yes.
I guess we go into round two then.
Okay.
Okay. You know, I had this, a warm-up table topics for Vicky, and it's not really an icebreaker as an icebreaker speech, but it's in the icebreaker activity. Vicky, I think you probably attended a number of conventions or meetings, especially with the Jack Canfield group, where you have icebreaker activities. So a group of people, you have an icebreaker so that you get to know each other and helps people relax. You've experienced that. Could you share with us maybe one or two of the more imaginative icebreakers that you've participated in?
Thank you, Madam Table Topics Masters. Icebreakers are always unique, and I find that in our new world of Zoom, that they can either really work or not work so well. It depends on how the instructor or the person leading it has done so. We just got done with 2 weeks, weekends of training for Toastmasters. And it was very interesting because I thought that they would have some sort of icebreaker activity where we would get to know one another. But it just seemed that we were thrown into breakout rooms with people that I may have seen last year, may not have seen last year. And everybody had a different way of going into the breakout room. And those who were leading these sessions, some did exceptional well of explaining how it was going to work, while others just said, you're all going to go into a breakout room, your instructions are on your forms, and go. And it was very interesting. So I have found if you're going to do a breakout on Zoom, that the instructions need to be very clear before you send them off. And even in our trainings, is one of those things that we are learning, that if we're going to send somebody away from the main room, we want to make sure that they understand what it entails in the breakout room, because otherwise in the breakout rooms, perhaps they start their own icebreakers. Let's get to know one another. Where are you from? What's going on? Why are you here? While others may sit in stone silence waiting for somebody to take initiative. And if you don't have somebody who's a self-starter in one of those breakout rooms and everybody is more on the introverted side, that can be challenging. So I find it very interesting with icebreakers now that we're on Zoom. The ones that I like on technology is sometimes you'll start a meeting and everybody will have their cameras off. And you're trying to think, how can we engage these people? Well, start asking them questions where they might have to turn their camera on in order to participate, and that they want to participate. And just call the people out, not in a way that makes them feel uncomfortable, but makes them feel included. Our new sessions with Zoom have been challenging, and it has made the icebreaker something more of a challenge if you have a big group. And I always suggest, if you have a group that is more than 5 or 6, that perhaps you do think about breakout rooms to get to know one another. Otherwise, you're going to have people not knowing other people and just not having that connection. I look forward to where we can do icebreakers back in the room, back in person, but let's get imaginative and make it fun so that everybody can get to know one another. Back to you, Mrs. Table Topics Master.
It will be nice to be back together in person, won't it? With full faces and unmuffled. Lloyd, I have a two-parter for you. Do you remember your very first icebreaker speech? Do you remember what you talked about? And in your Toastmaster career, is there a speech given by someone else that stands out as the most memorable to you?
First icebreaker. Thinking here, there've been 9 of them, so I'm trying to think what's the first. The first icebreaker I did was probably 3 or 4 weeks into my membership, I guess. And I didn't know what to do because I'd never seen anybody do one. And the old CC manual had a lot of material about how to create one, but not necessarily what they were supposed to be. So I asked Doug Taylor, who Eric remembers, he was a member back then, and probably earlier than we were members, I think. Now retired counselor at East Montclair at Wenatchee High School. So I asked him what to do, and he said, well, just tell a short version of your life story. So that's what I did. And that turned out to be the worst possible way to do an icebreaker. The reason is, if you give a moment's thought to that, you're going to tell your whole life story in 4 to 6 minutes. Not likely unless you've been, kept in a car trunk somewhere or something like that. So that was my first icebreaker. It was a terrible speech. I'm kind of glad I don't remember any of the details. The most memorable Toastmaster speech I've ever heard, it was probably a contest speech. There's a former member named Natalie Palmer, Eric and Vicky. I don't know if Steve was in the club when Natalie was. Natalie was an exceptional speaker. She now lives in the Denver suburbs, but she was really, really good speech writer and a much better speaker. And she asked me she made the national or the international semifinal around 1 year, did not place, and the next year she took another shot at it. And she had a speech she had put together for actually a presentation at a church. And unfortunately, it was about 15 typed pages. Well, the problem is 7-minute time limit. She asked if I could figure out how to pare it down. And so I did. I pared it down so it fit the limit. It's called Dig. It was a speech about her youngest daughter, who is now a high school senior, but back then, 4 or 5, 6 years old, something like that. And Natalie looked out her kitchen window one day and she saw the little girl out in the backyard digging away with what turned out to be a spoon that her grandmother had on. She went out to see what the kid was doing, and she was digging a swimming pool. She had said she wanted a swimming pool. Natalie and her husband had explained, no, there's not enough room in the yard, and they're really expensive anyway. The little girl decided to dig a swimming pool. And what the speech was about was the idea that for little kids, nothing is impossible, nothing. But there comes a time in our lives when nearly everything becomes impossible. So what causes that switch to happen, and how would it be possible to recover it? And I really thought it was probably the best contest speech I've ever heard, at least in our district. Somehow the judges didn't agree, and a guy who talked about taking his son duck hunting with him and almost having the little kid freeze to death won.
Okay, one more, since we don't have a speech evaluation. So this is a volunteer one. Are you competitive? Do you enter contests or races with the goal of winning, not just participating? Tell us a story of how you began, how long it took to reach your goal, and what do you aspire to next? Pat.
I'm not competitive about many things, but I am competitive about answering questions or solving problems. The best story I have to tell about that is one morning when I lived in Utah and I was driving from my home in Park City down to Salt Lake where my college was. I listened to public radio and there was a contest. In the contest, they would identify some place in the world and you had to guess what it was. They gave you the clues. You were the ones who had to identify it. And they were giving this description of this place. And I went, well, that's Alexandria, Egypt. Anybody would know that. Well, we're talking back in the 80s, so it wasn't like I could look at it online or I could use my cell phone or anything. So when I got to the office, you were supposed to call a certain number. So I called the number and I gave them my name, my phone number, and said, well, if you were describing Alexandria, Egypt. That was the end of November. The day before Christmas, we were on Christmas break. I got a phone call at home. Is this Patricia Whitfield? Yes. Well, you have won a trip for two anywhere in the world you would like to go on TWA. That clearly dates it because TWA is no longer with us. And I went like, wow, where would I like to go? Well, actually, I lied about the year. It was 73 because we were having trouble with the Middle East with oil. I really wanted to go to Egypt. I wanted to see the pyramids. I wanted to do all that, but that didn't make any sense. And my husband was a little bit uncomfortable about that. So I decided it would be great to go to Spain because I speak the language and it has a rich heritage and a rich history. My prize was that trip. Our best friends, another couple that we had hung out with for years, wanted to join us. And we all four went to Spain and we saw Barcelona and we went to Mallorca. Just, it was a fabulous trip. All because I was able to answer that dumb question that I thought anybody else could know. That's my story.
Well, I'm glad we took the time for one last question. What a great story. Thanks, everyone. This was fun having little extended table topics, learn more about each other, and break a little ice besides. Mr. Toastmaster, stage win.
Thank you. That was a rousing evening of conversation. Extemporaneous speaking is a wonderful thing. I know Lloyd likes to tell us that a good presentation for new guests to our club is to hear an organized speech. I like to think that there's a lot to be said for the opportunity to speak off the cuff and build coherent thought that makes sense to people. And that's a wonderful skill that we develop here through table topics. I think back to when I was probably in my very early 20s, I heard about Toastmasters and I thought, man, that sounds interesting. And I remember reading in the presentation of Toastmasters promotional material that they talked about, you might be speaking about a political topic of the day or something that other businessmen might find interesting. And I let that intimidate me because I was not someone polished in current day affairs. I was afraid of making a complete fool of myself and chose not to look up that particular chapter of Toastmasters. Too bad for me. I missed a lot of years of the opportunity to grow sooner. The beauty of ad-libbing almost, extemporaneous speaking is such a great thing to be able to build a thought. And I don't know if you ever watched Whose Line Is It Anyway, but impromptu is a cool thing. And there's some true valuable building blocks in how to build a speech outside of what we learned in Toastmasters. And it was from a little impromptu presentation that I had in I think a sales environment where they were saying, if you use these tools, you can build your thought. And it goes pretty quick and smoothly to build an idea and to run with it, even if it's an unorthodox, unorganized, almost irrational kind of a thought aimed at humor as much as providing information to another. I think we had a wonderful meeting tonight. Speaking quickly and freely and easily. With that, I'm going to turn the meeting over to our general evaluator, Mr. Lloyd.
Okay, thank you, Steve. Let's start off with our reports. The first one is our timers report. Okay.
It's Lloyd. I was very impressed. We did very well, given the fact that table topics were 2 to 4 minutes this evening rather than the typical 1 to 3. 1 to 2. Thank you for that correction. Eric, you were at 3 minutes 5 seconds. Pat, 4 minutes 8 on your first one, 2 minutes 31 seconds on your second one. Lloyd, 3 minutes 5 seconds on your second one, 3 minutes 29 seconds. Vicky, 3 minutes 55 seconds, 3 minutes 32 seconds. I was at 2 minutes 38. Steve, you were at 2 minutes 54. And in your impromptu table topic, unsolicited second speech, you were at 2:32. Good job. Back to you. Lloyd.
Report is our inheritance report with Pat Whitfield.
I like the way that Steve talked about a Jimmy. I think our group would know what a Jimmy was, but if anybody else was younger, they might not necessarily know a Jimmy was a GMC pickup truck. I like the use of that. He also talked about the kids, the boys, running like a pack of dogs. Well, that was an interesting way to put it. I can visualize it as an old elementary teacher, and I can picture it out on the playground. The one thing I would like you to have explained a little bit more was stopping at Wall Drug. I lived in South Dakota, and I know where Wall Drug is. But if people haven't traveled in that corner of the world, they would know all of the culture that surrounds Wall Drug. So I would like you to explain that a little bit more. And congratulations, you used the word extemporaneous twice. Rob, this is demonstrating my lack of ignorance about football, but I haven't the remotest idea of what a white hat is. And so you might have explained that for those of us who don't know a whole lot about football. Other than that, no other problems whatsoever. I liked what Vicki said about risk is a game where arguments start. You're right on, girl. That's true, that's true. Mary, nice use of the word obviate. That's not a word we hear very often. And it stood out to me right from the very beginning. And the other thing is when you talked about radical option, what we were going to do tonight was a radical option. So lovely use of language there. Eric, you were sneaky the way you used extemporaneous. My dad was an ex-Marine and extemporaneous. So you used it once, but you used it in a very creative way. Lloyd used the word of the evening 3 times. So he is the word of the evening champion.
Yay, Lloyd.
Thank you very much. All well spoken tonight.
Thank you, Pat. Our outcounters report will be by Vicki Chatterton. Vicki.
All right. I don't know that if it's that people are wearing face masks and it's further away. I didn't pick up too many filler words. I caught myself with a so for sure that I know I had, and I'm sure that I had ands peppered throughout, especially in my second table topics, because I was trying to think of things, and it seems to be my go-to now when I'm trying to think of, I'll say and. So other than that, you guys get a pass because if the mask maybe helped, I don't know. Back to you.
Thank you, Vicki. I will turn the meeting back over to our Vice President for Education, Rob Steele, who has a presentation.
Yes, I do. Thank you, Lloyd. We have some certificates of completion to give out this evening. The first person is getting 37 certificates.
But she's in England.
I'm joking, it's not that many, and she is actually here we have several for Mary
Really?
Cyree. So congratulations, Mary. Job well done.
Wow, thank you.
You have a lot to frame.
I do.
Yes, you
I'm gonna
do.
Go get some trainings tomorrow. Wow, thank you.
You're welcome. We also have a certificate of completion for Lloyd Smith for achieving level 1 of innovative planning. Congratulations, Lloyd.
You. I should throw in that I have 2 or 3 for Vicky, so the next time we're in the same room, I'll give you yours. I think a couple of you don't know this, but I've been slowly printing these for 19 months that we haven't been able to meet, so there was a little backlog.
Thank you, Lloyd. Vicky, do you have any report for us after this last weekend?
All of our new officers have been inaugurated in and have taken office. And so we have a whole new team. Margaret Page is now our international president. She has come to visit our district a couple times. She is a member of Region 1, which we are in. So we're very lucky to have her as our international president. And I'm just looking forward to things moving on. And if you want to take on a leadership position, let me know, because we still have some openings and we will always accept more people who are willing to help and step up, even if it's just for us. If you can only do a small task, let me know, because there's always small things that need to be done in the district too. Back to you.
Great, thank you, Vicky. I want to thank everybody for showing up tonight. It was a small but mighty group, as Lloyd indicated earlier. Anyone have anything for the good of the order they'd like to share? Eric?
Dues are due, $56.
Oh, yeah.
Be sure and pay your dues, $56. Get it in as soon as possible. And with that, as President Pro Tem, I call the meeting adjourned. Thank you all for coming.